We are now coming up on 30 seconds to acquisition of the command module.
Hello and welcome everyone to Imagination TV. My name is Parul. You can call me PJ. I'll be your host for today. And what makes me who I am is the spirit of my ancestors, is the people that have made my life on the planet possible. I reflect back and I know that being alive on the planet today is already a miracle. The fact that life occurred on planet Earth is a huge miracle, even if we forget that at times. And as I acknowledge my ancestors, I want to ground ourselves in the lands we're all gathered upon. Here in Australia, we are on Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander lands. I'm calling in from Gumbaynggirr country, and it's the most beautiful, sublime country, and I'm eternally grateful to have been welcomed into this country by the people that have tended to this land for many millennia and will continue to do so. We have a real power-packed panel with us today, and we're going to discuss everything related to Imagination University and the alliances that are coming together to bring this to life with us. But before we jump to the panel and hear from three powerhouse mentors in our worlds, let's cut to a short video that we made that captures the essence of what Imagination University is and what we're trying to do here.
Let's imagine
what a free and just world looks like. Let's imagine
a university free for all,
with no paywalls to higher order thinking for anyone, anywhere.
Let's imagine
a social network for good.
A bridge for us to come together and redesign the way the world works.
Let's imagine what happens when we tell the kids at the back of the class,
We see you.
There is a generation of kids just like you.
Let's imagine school students, university students,
Teachers, executives, citizens.
coming together to work on a curriculum designed for a future that we hope to build. Now, imagine.
It's happening right here. And you're invited.
Welcome to Imagination University, brought to you by AIM, the Imagination Factory.
Applications are open now.
All right. So let's get the panel introduced. I would love to start with you, Rebecca. Do you want to introduce yourself? And then we'll go around the circle. And while we're introducing ourselves, I'm just going to throw a random question to just include as part of your introduction. And it's going to be, if you were a bridge in the world, anywhere in the world, what bridge would you be? I don't know why I'm introducing that, but just go for it.
Thanks, PJ. So hi, everyone. I'm Rebecca Highland. I'm a proud Kamilaroi woman. I'm currently living on the Darkinjung lands. I come from a really big family, and I'm really fortunate enough to have grown up surrounded by my mob and on beautiful country. I've been fortunate enough to spend a lot of my career travelling in regional and remote locations right across Australia. And I've learned so much around, the last 18 years really dedicated to First Nations engagement, which has been a huge focus for me. And I think for me, I'm really most passionate about empowering through education, health outcomes for mob and First Nations leadership. And I think, that really cool question, PJ. Well, for me, it would be for us all to think beyond our current actions, and how we can start to progress a collective reconciliation journey in Australia and what that will look like. Really exciting stuff.
Yeah, really stoked to have you here with us, Rebecca. And yeah, that question of if you were physically a bridge on the planet, is there a bridge you would want to be? Before I throw it to Sagnik, Rebecca, is there a bridge that comes to mind?
Yeah, look, the bridge I think is around, reconciliation here in Australia, between our Indigenous people and our non-Indigenous people. And I think, we're all working really hard towards that, but I think we have so much more that we can do and that we can achieve. And, opportunity to be involved in AIM's Imagination program, really stood out to me because it aligns to my values of, how we start to walk beside each other and start to celebrate each other, our diversity, and how we start to really incorporate that right through the system. So it's really exciting for me to be part of that and to have that part of my journey, but to share that journey with others as well.
Yeah, that's profound. We'll come back to the theme of reconciliation and how you might be a physical human bridge with us later. But over to you, Sagnik. Would love to hear from you. And also tell me, what bridge would you be?
Hello, everyone. I'm Shagnik Roy. I'm from India, and I'm 17 years old. I'm a high school student and currently enrolled in Imagination University as a filmmaker. And I am working in the entertainment sector to improve access to the entertainment industry for newer artists. And as well, I'm working on some of the global goals through my my nonprofit, which is called Genesis. So about your question, I think it's a really cool thing to be like a glass bridge. I forgot where is it? Don't ask me. I'm really bad at geography. I think if I was ever to be a bridge, I would be a glass bridge, because as much as it's intimidating, it's very mystical just to see yourself in a see-through bridge. It feels like you might fall at any point of time, but then if you're careful enough, you might not, So, yeah.
That's so cool. I love the Shagnik. I think I got your name wrong. I said Sagnik, but it's Shagnik. Okay, got that right. And yeah, I'm keen to hear about your work with Genesis and what made you start something. And you've been really inspiring to us as we've seen you grow through Imagination University this year. I've had the fortune of even throwing film recommendation names of films at you, and you've run with it. So we'll come back to that in a minute. And I love the idea of a see-through bridge and hanging in the middle space, not knowing if you're crossing over to the other side. But we're going to cross over to the other side of Kolkata. And over to you, Pauline. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, and hello everyone. This is Pauline, based out of Kolkata, but originally from Paris. I work in the space of education for sustainability, basically trying to introduce these global goals into the students' curricula, opportunities, and career ambitions here in Kolkata. And I've been striving to do that, especially through building communities around sustainable development, which enables to build beautiful bridges, as the topic is of bridges today, between students and therefore future professionals with existing professionals that can inspire them to choose a career that is both enabling them to financially thrive, but also with that purpose and that meaning that they can also seek through their career. And to answer your question about the bridge, I think without hesitation, I would mention Pont Neuf in Paris. So first, Paris is, I don't think I'm too biased, but although it's my hometown, but I think Paris is the most beautiful city in the world. And when we were living in Paris, we were just living nearby this Pont Neuf. Pont Neuf literally in French means new bridge. And what was beautiful about this bridge is that it did not only connect one bank to another, but it had this like mid part, like it was two parts of that bridge, and you could stop in the middle of the Seine, of the river, and chill with your friends. There were like a grass and a little park place, on the river, and spent a lot of time with friends and family over there. So it brings a lot of memories back when I think about this bridge.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And yeah, you've been inspiring me for the last couple of years, Pauline, in different ways through the work you've been doing, whether it's
Likewise, Carol. I love receiving your emails and your energy through different ways and emojis that you always send to all of us. And I love that. That's what I would be grateful for today, actually.
Right. That's how we roll, Pauline. That's beautiful. And I love Pont Neuf. And I think you're slightly biased, Pauline, but Paris is pretty special as a city. And yeah, I don't know if this qualifies as a city, but I love Coffs Harbour. It is a regional city. And I'm very, very grateful to be on this land. So yeah, today, as you can gather, we are gathered here to discover or unpack how we build bridges amongst people. So I decided to throw that in the introduction. As you may or may not know, all of you on this particular panel, we at AIM have been building bridges for the last 17 years. And what happens when we build bridges, etched with the DNA of human connection? On these bridges, we come together and we redesign the way the world works. And I think that's perhaps the only shot we have at changing some of the systems that are so unfair for some of the people. And yeah, AIM was built off the foundations of unlikely connections. And today we get to build bridges with different kinds of knowledge, different kinds of people, stories we haven't heard of. And if I were a bridge myself, just to answer my own question and be part of the discussion, I'm thinking this was part of a research that we did maybe a couple of years ago. And this was when AIM was expanding to the US. It was a research paper published. And AIM was compared by the researchers based in the US to the Verrazano Bridge. And at that point, it was the longest bridge being built anywhere in the world. And the architects, they had this amazing team of architects from around the world designing the bridge, but they couldn't make the two parts meet. Now, the story is a bit apocryphal. It's got like legend and folklore mixed in by now. But the reason why all these wise minds couldn't make the two worlds connect was because they forgot to include, and they had never built such a tall structure, such a long structure. They forgot to include a critical element that was the curvature of the earth. And the critical element in forming human connections, that paper went on to argue, is finding like the common root or the common values that make us all human, and then the two worlds can meet. So I'm really keen to unpack how we all build bridges in our day-to-day life. And I'm very mindful of keeping it focused on how do we want to build bridges with Imagination University specifically. So let's have you start, Sagnik, over to you. Tell us, how do you build bridges in your life, and what bridges have you built this year by being part of Imagination University as a young filmmaker in our worlds?
Yeah. So first of all, I was this morning when I woke up and I was just meditating, I was thinking about the same question, like, what do I think of when I think of building bridges, right? So subconsciously, I think I've been doing that throughout this journey that I had in AIM. And it's basically like the first thing which comes to my mind is empathy. Whenever you begin building bridges, whenever you begin building connections with people, you have to be empathetic towards people, or even with situations, even with places. Everything that you see on the planet, it needs empathy to have a connection with it. So I think that's the first step to building bridges. You need to be empathetic. and you need to be understanding. So throughout the 10-month journey, I think what I have been doing is I have been finding that common space for empathy. I have been communicating with everybody, because my team that's working on my project, it's very, very diverse. We have people from Africa, we have people from UAE, New Zealand, parts of USA. So it's extremely diverse. And the fact that everybody could come together to bring a project to life is really amazing. Everybody connected on the theme. So like I said, it's important to be empathetic towards things. So they were empathetic towards me as a person. I was empathetic towards them as a person. So so I think that's what helps you build bridges. You have to be very, very open to creating groundbreaking changes. And also you need to understand what actually needs change and work towards changing what's not working. So, yeah.
Geez, that's amazing, Shavnik. And you're 17 years old, you said. I think AIM would have started roughly at the time that you were born. So it's fascinating. I'm really fortunate to hear how the bridges you're building through our work. And that's the intent of this whole university. We don't have all the answers. We don't have the problem solved. We know some things aren't working. And we think we have some knowledge we've accumulated over the last 17 years that we can share as a toolkit. And then it's the power of the network. It's the power of you connecting with someone in New Zealand, someone in Africa, someone in America, while still holding the human element together, the empathy together. That's such a critical part. So thanks for sharing that, Shavnik. And we'll dive into your experience of uni this year as well. Pauline, I remember you enrolled into uni as an executive. I don't know how the journey went for you. I wonder if you're coming back next year. Tell us what your sort of building bridges methodology is and what's your intent with Imagination University.
Thank you, Parul, and very inspiring to hear Shavnik as well. Looking forward to meeting you because we're not so far, Shavnik. To answer your question, so before I enrolled into the university, I already had started working on exactly building bridges, especially through WISE, which is meant to be this new networking and connecting space, typically in between NGOs and social enterprises here in East and Northeast India that didn't have that connecting space before. And what I love about this is not only do they find like-minded professionals, but they find also friends that make them understand personally that their whatever fight they chose on the global goals can be poverty alleviation, can be livelihoods, can be education, can be waste management. They're not alone working on that, and I think that's a really, really strong power of building bridges. That is to say, you're into your own individuality, and then this bridge is created somehow with another stranger, and you're like, oh, I can actually easily relate, and we can actually create things together because we have the same ambitions. Now that we know each other, that can be easily activated. And one of the things that even beyond that I love the most is, as you said, Parul, unlikely connections. We usually think that it's going to be great to meet like-minded people, and it's very true, but I think I also value very much when you meet with someone very, very different. That, as Shavnik said, of course, there needs to be open-mindedness and empathy, no matter how far in mindset we are. But there has been this couple of encounters in my life that made me realize that the further we are into our belief system, into our experiences, the more we have to learn from each other. And I've been mind blown by what I could learn from someone that was super, super different. And I think that's also one of the things that the university enables people to do, as Shavnik was saying, connecting with people that are not initially in your own circles. You have this, and if you don't make this conscious effort of building unlikely bridges, then you'll stay in your own ecosystem and bubble. And what AIM does, what WISE does, and what other such community do is that they connect Kolkata with the US, with Uganda, with Australia in random manners. And this randomization of connections is what makes it beautiful. And just to answer your last question on the university, it's been going well. I've met with incredible people. Jason it's part of my group based out of Australia, and we've already been, starting to connect and think of different ways to partner and collaborate. So it's been wonderful on that particular front of unlikely connections, opening to bubbles and ecosystem that we would never have had access without that particular bridge.
Yeah, that's the main thing here. We love the idea of unlikely connections, and we are trying to codify how to unlock imagination. And we don't think it's unlikely connection times 100 times a million. We think it's really small. We think it's unlikely connections times 5. What happens when you bring a diverse group of 5 people from different backgrounds, from different genders, from different races, of different ages, of different experiences, put them all like in an aligned vision, and then see what this network creates in a year-long journey in 10 months. So it's quite a fascinating exploration. Rebecca, you are sort of new to Imagination University's world, but you are not new at all to the world of building bridges and forging reconciliation in Australia and in the world. So tell us how you go about building bridges between people who have lots of differences. And then what is your intent with Imagination University from whatever you've gathered so far?
Yeah, that's such a cool question. I think, when I reflect on this, building bridges to me, it means being brave. And this to me is around truth telling. And that's through, education. It can come in many forms, by many ways of doing and ways of being. And when I think about that, it's an understanding why the process of truth telling here in Australia is important for our communities, and that's our customers, our partners, our stakeholders, employees, and our students who are our future leaders. And it's how we really turn up the dial and ensure that First Nations people have a seat at the table in decision making. And your bravery can come in many forms. It can be a process of self-reflection on what we have done and how we as individuals, and then collectively, how we come together to enhance and do better, and how we can ensure that we're building those bridges. We have such an opportunity to really evaluate progress and to consider how we can do better and be braver. And I think, it's how we combine, that community knowledge. Community people are the experts of their communities. It's how we utilize our amazing minds of our students, organizations, corporate leaders, into generating more opportunity, to challenge ourselves, to engage with initiatives and partnerships that have huge impact, for the mums and dads of communities, for our younger generations to come. And I think, we have that, through education to learn and to understand the history of Australia. We can really, learn about how we connect to country and how, country really heals and, really supports that reconciliation journey as well.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Rebecca. And truth telling is such an important part of first, acknowledging history before we want to change anything. And if we can't honestly tell the truth to ourselves and admit what has happened, what is happening, there's no chance of changing anything. So what do you think, Rebecca, is your contribution towards Imagination University? What can you sort of help? How do you curate the network? How do you bring people from your worlds into Imagination University so we can collectively go on and create more change in the world than we as individuals can possibly do?
So I guess, for us, through IAG, the company that I'm currently working for, it's, through that our employee engagement, it's how we leverage AIM's skills and expertise and, content to really support IAG's people to become change makers as well. And I think, IAG has been partnering now with AIM through our Reconciliation Action Plan since 2014. So at the moment, we're currently in the process of developing our next Reconciliation Action Plan. And we've really considered some complex challenges that appear hard to address, and what role we commit to take in addressing them, like around, for example, one of our leadership projects that for our next Reconciliation Action Plan will be around enabling Indigenous people, businesses and community to take action to address climate change and disaster resilience. So currently IAG delivers disaster resilience and climate change outcomes by working with and influencing other companies, organisations and governments to address climate-related issues. So I think, we also know that traditional land practices, really reduce the severity and risk of natural perils and, support the reduction in carbon in the system through carbon offsetting. So through all of this, what we would hope to be doing and what we want to commit to doing through our partnership with AIM is to really look at, we want to build upon disaster resilience work. And we want to incorporate all of our partners, through the Australian Red Cross. We want to leverage opportunities through New South Wales Rural Fire Services where we can. I think for us, we're going to be trying to, really build that bridge, as part of this leadership project. We want to work with AIM to support young people who are really proactive in taking climate action. And we really believe that there is such opportunity in working together to reimagine, how do we combine our collective intelligence to work towards, further disaster resilience and climate change action.
Yeah, that's such a critical area of change where we all need to step in, and it's not any single person's responsibility. It's the responsibility of the collective to respond. And this will be, I've heard many a time being described as the make or break decade. And we are on very risky territory. We have to take action now, lest we lose ourselves. I think the planet is more resilient than the human race is. So I suspect the planet will be around much longer than we are. But yeah, there's a lot of things we hopefully can do from now until whatever time we have left to start shifting some of the things back. So we would love to have people from Red Cross or the Rural Fire Services or the National Fire Service and IAG sort of come together. And this is the beauty of the university. It allows for different stakeholders, different organizations around the world, whether it's IAG or whether it's Y-East or whether it's Genesis, to come together in the first instance. And we go as a collective towards solving inequity, which is one of the key challenges of our times. And then obviously the climate crisis, which is the second or the same sort of level of bigger challenges that we have to tackle. What about you, Pauline? How do you start thinking about tackling these macro solutions? And I also want to know, just out of curiosity, what is a random, unlikely connection you made in the last 6 weeks, let's just say, and where did it take you, Pauline?
Wow, that's a lot in couple of questions. Okay. So to answer your first question, I think, if we go back to the global goals, that is all of the social and environmental challenges that we're facing as a human species, not only as a human species, actually, as part of any animal species of this planet and living species. It's important to understand all of these phenomena at a global scale, because typically, be it climate change or air pollution, do not follow country borders. But at the same time, once you have this global understanding, it's important for you to refocus on your own locality and on your own set of skills and on your own set of centers of interest. So that's something that I really usually say to students, where it can get overwhelming because it's mentally overwhelming first, and second, you have a lot of young people and professional and I'm counting myself as part of them, that really want to save the world in a couple of days, right? And it's just impossible for you as an individual to save anything on your own. So there's a couple of things that I insist when I talk about this. Is first, You cannot do anything on your own, and it's absolutely fine. And this is why we need to work together so that you can bring your own skills and then find complementary skills within other people to work with, so that at the end of the day, you build this very, very strong team that is able to tackle and provide solutions to such complex problems. And the second thing that I think is important to realize, individually speaking, is that it is absolutely okay to not be able to do everything, and you have your strengths, you have your skills, you have your own, all of these qualities that make you unique. And there's so many different ways in which each and every one of us can kind of pitch into that systems change that is needed. And that is absolutely fine and ideal if you can find this little niche for yourself, based on who you are and what kind of cause you're that is dear to your heart, and then work on that, and then meet people that are doing complementary stuff. So that would be the answer to your first question. The second question was, well, okay, an unlikely connection. Right, it was around a month ago. So we have this network, the WISE network of NGOs and social enterprises here in East and Northeast India. And through connections from the Learning Planet community based in Paris, I don't know how these networks work. I got connected to an Ashoka fellow based in Kolkata that I didn't know about before, called Paramita Banerjee. And she is the founder of an NGO called Diksha. And she invited me to their office, and I met the whole, team of that NGO. They're doing wonderful work for the past, I think, 15 years or so, on providing a space, especially for young girls and boys alike, to open up the dialogue and have this more of a safe space for the youngsters that are born in red light areas of Kolkata. Beautiful work. And when I visited their office, I don't speak a lot of Bengali, but a little bit, enough to understand. There was this one beautiful woman who is working with the NGO, who shared her story of abuse that she went through herself since she was, I think, her first story of abuse, unfortunately, was when she was 7, and she was so, I was a stranger to her. She poured her heart out and shared in all honesty and truth what had happened, and her story was so strong that although it was the first time we met and we had very different stories, very different backgrounds, we kind of connected on an emotional level that I had rarely experienced before. So that it was beautiful.
That's magical, and that's really hard as a theme to grasp, all the thing that happens to young children. Yeah. And it's just
I think bouncing on what Shagnik was mentioning earlier on empathy, I think there's something about empathy that is beautiful as well, that is, you try your best to understand someone, but it's also very, very important, I think, to realize that you will never fully 100% understand that someone. So you need to get to bridge and to get as close as possible to that person, yet, being accepting of the fact that their experience is too deep or too different or too unique in nature for you to fully understand. So there's always this respect, I think, to have of, I respect your unique characteristics, your unique traits and qualities, and I am different, and this is the kind of difference that also makes the connection beautiful in a way, realizing that we'll never be the exact same person in thought and mind and experience.
I think you've pretty much nailed how empathy works in real life, Pauline. You've taken us to the edge of understanding empathy, and for that, I thank you. I'm tempted to ask you to speak some Bengali, but I might get Shagnik to do that instead. And Shagnik.
That's a bad idea.
Shagnik, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear from you on what is one unlikely connection with an idea, not with a person, that you've made through Imagination University. Where has it taken you? What has it opened for you in your mind? And what are you planning to do over the next year, Shagnik, with us?
Right. So I think one unlikely connection that I made with an idea would be I made a lot of unlikely connections with ideas throughout the 10 months. AIM has given me such a lot to utilize and think of. I think the most unlikely one for me would be to think of how to find the middle ground for absolutely anything to work out. So we might often think that, okay, there's just this extreme or that extreme, but there, like, if we think a little bit more open-mindedly, or if we think a little bit more with empathy, we can always find a middle ground. So I think that's what I kind of had to learn throughout my 10-month journey. So I, like, while building my project, I had to meet a lot of people. I had to talk to a lot of people. And as much as I learned how to say no, and I also learned how to just like leave the table when necessary, I also learned how to work with people by negotiating and finding that middle ground where they're getting something out of this connection and I'm getting something out of this connection. Because it's not always about like a give and take relation. It's more about connecting. It's more about, okay, so we both are passionate about the same thing, so let's make something happen. If you're able to remunerate me, that's fine. If you're not able to do that, then that's also fine, you know, because we're working towards a greater goal. So I think that would be an unlikely connection for me. So yeah.
Yeah, that's profound, Shagnik. It's to find that middle ground where anything becomes possible. And we've imagined some really weird and bizarre things here at AIM, which are wonderful and magical. And sometimes it's hard to make it happen. Like it's bonkers now to think that Imagination University was an idea in our heads probably 12 months ago. And here we are, like we've had people from 52 different countries go on the journey with us over the last year, and we're now looking at the next chapter. So I'm really keen to hear from all of you on what practical action. Yeah, Shagnik?
One really quick thing which I would like to add in, I forgot to answer your second question. So like AIM gave me, like I said, AIM gave me a lot to work on and think about throughout the 10 months. It was an amazing experience to build a project, to build an likely connection, which is why I have already registered for the next year with some of my teammates at Genesis. So I'm pretty sure we'll be making some more groundbreaking changes next year. So.
Beautiful. Shagnik, that's a perfect segue for us to start wrapping up the panel. And I'd love to hear from you, Rebecca, and you, Pauline, like what practical action will you take yourself via your network to start enacting more change, perhaps with AIM and Imagination University? I know I'm with you, Shagnik. I'm re-enrolling as a citizen because I got a lot out of the group of 5 that I worked with. My project is near submission, which is great. And then I'm keen to work on another social change project next year. And I'll also bring 50 people along with me to the university, just so we go together as a group. So that's my commitment. What about you, Pauline?
We actually started quite recently to discuss through Imagination University for students to have 100 of them starting mentoring another 100 less privileged students of other areas of Kolkata. And so hopefully, especially with we want to build a multi-stakeholders initiative on this. So we were actually approached by a couple of NGOs working in these areas that would love to bring more educational opportunities in these areas as well. And I think if we can bridge that gap through some of our students at Techno India University that we can involve in Imagination University, I think that would be the best way to go about it. So Parul, I will let you know, but that's in the plans. That's in the plans.
All right, I'm stoked for that. I'm super excited. Like I know the situation in Kolkata, And it would be profoundly beautiful to see a group of university students gather, whether in the Techno India campus, and work with hundreds of kids in that area. And hopefully we can start scripting a new future.
Absolutely.
What about you, Rebecca?
Look, I think, as I was saying earlier, as part of our Reconciliation Action Plan, we'll continue to work with AIM and look at how we can work with young people around our leadership project of climate action. And there's so much opportunity in that space. And, looking at IAG's current work and what we have done, and all the partnerships that we've got in place, I think it's really exciting and incredible, how we, start to, leverage, and how do we, make those connections, and, how do we have those conversations with, so much intelligence out there around, climate change, to bring it all to the table and to work with them, AIM young people as well around their experience. And also, I think, how we combine that traditional knowledge of land practices, I think will be such a super exciting and extremely important, opportunity to bring to the table.
Yeah, I'm hearing in there like a project that sort of brings different stakeholders together for climate change, Rebecca. So we'd love to have you part of the experience with us and the wider IAG crew, and we'll work with you offline as well. And I know like IAG's been a valuable partner of AIM. And on the point of RAP, like we love the fact that we're working with you all on that. But I would be really fascinated. The reason why we designed the executive stream of Imagination University, and I know it's an ongoing conversation we will continue to have with IAG, with some of our partners in the ecosystem, is perhaps to look at, say, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander young people and have them come into your leadership room and not necessarily into the diversity office, have them lead as co-CEOs of the organization, have them sit in the boardroom, be the face of the organization. So we know there's more opportunity to lead from the center rather than from the side. So, and it comes back to your point, Rebecca, of you saying, yeah, we need to have the first peoples first at the table and actually making decisions from the central engine room. Hey, I can go on talking to all of you for ages, but I'm mindful that we are at the end of our time. I thank you all profoundly for joining us, profusely for being a part of this experience, and for bringing the networks that you hold together, because we are stronger together. It's like that mycelium network underground, enmeshing, bringing together different strands, bringing together different knowledges that can then hopefully take us into the future. We have a final video for a couple of minutes to throw to, and this sort of reflects on AIM's journey when we started in 2005 and sort of walks through the next 14 or so years. So it probably misses the last couple of years, but it's a really fun video and I thought we'd end on that. So enjoy.
Like, oh my God! Who wants to be a mentor? We are ready to take this on.